Okay, today I'm going to talk about Proxmox High Availability, specifically the one that I have in my lab, and how exactly I got to that design. Um, Before we even start talking about the Proxmox availability in network, it's not from Proxmox. It is something they assign in Proxmox. So when we have to design it, we have to be careful based on what we need, what is the expectation, or whatever the end result supposed to be. So, for example, there would be multiple component on an high availability network. So, in the case of Proxmox, let's start from um, this lab, and I'm going to compare it with this one, and then let's find out what we really need to do before we start doing availability. So high availability from the server point of view, uh, all the hosts should have the same spec. By that I mean, if I go to the confederacy and then go to edu, for example, and then under the summary, you will realize this host has 32 CPUs. And then on the socket, it has two sockets. Okay. So for high availability, there is no requirement really about how many sockets you have. It, it's whatever your host can do, right? So this one has 32 CPUs and two sockets. And then if I go to Nabu has 80 CPUs and it has four sockets. And uh, Tatooine has only eight CPUs and eight in one socket. So if you find yourself having to do high availability in a situation like this, you have to make sure that the lowest CPU, the lowest spec you have in your CPU, um, the, the lowest spec on the lowest server will be that what can happen should a host break, for example. Let me try to explain better. So let's say right now you only have eight CPUs here, okay? And then you design in one of your VM, you go to the hardware, and the hardware you edit it, and then you put this one like for 16 core, okay? So 16 core, you cannot create this one here because you only have 8 core available. So once you click on OK, you save this one on a different server that can support it. And if you have a crash in the only server that is here is Nabu or the Tatooine, that server is not going to boot because one, it's trying to fail over or being moved to that host. And then to find out that the CPU you have here, it's only 8, it's just going to fail. So that server is going to stay offline until you have a server available. Or the only thing you can do when you configure your availability, make sure that server is not part of it. But in this situation here, I only have 3 servers. If I already remove one, and then I only have 2 available, now you have a problem with quorum that may break your availability when time comes. Okay, so the best practice is to find something that is exactly the same, but not all of us are fortunate to be able to do that, and especially in a lab environment, that's not going to happen. So if you have, for example, in my situation here, if you have a database, okay, if you have a database that require 2 or more sockets and that require more than 20 or more than 30 CPUs, definitely you cannot apply high availability to that server, because if you do that, it will attempt, it will fail, and it will leave your server in a bad state. Okay, so my design here, it's good, to on a lab environment. But if we were to do the design for a small business, that is the objective of those videos. So I will go to this option, for example, and this option here on my cluster, I have 3 nodes. Those 3 nodes, those are based on Hotom servers. Those are the small, tiny servers. And I believe I may be able to find a picture to share with you guys later. But I have 3 nodes for this cluster or data center, and each has exactly the same thing. It's 8 CPUs, 1 cluster, and it has 64 gig RAM. If you go to the second one, it has exactly 64 gig RAM, 8 CPUs, and 1 socket. Same BIOS, same everything. Because there are, if you have some application running on an old OS, some OS they do not support the same CPU when you create the VM. And that's going to be an option. So all your hosts should be able to support exactly the same thing. So this is from the server point of view when we have to move stuff around. When one server get disconnected by accident, and then you don't want your VMs to go offline. So that going to satisfy it if you have everything identical. But some, it doesn't mean you cannot do HA if you do not have the same, because again, not everybody will be able to find 3 servers identical, because usually when we start a lab, you start with 1 server, and then after that you add a second, a third, and depend. Sometimes it's a reused server, whatever they're not using, they gave you, you grab it and you add, so it's not going to happen. But in a situation, we assume that's a lab, but if it is a business, please use the highest CPU count you have on the lowest or on the smallest server to configure your HA. Anything that is higher than that server, do not move it. For example, if it has only 1 socket and then you need 2 sockets on a VM, do not make it on a pool where that VM can accidentally try to move to that server. Okay, so that is the first thing. The second is the network side of thing. Okay, those Quotum they come with 6 copper port and 4 10 gigs. So over here you will see for my bond 0, I create one LCP with 2 10 gigs, and bond 1 doesn't physically have anything connected to those ports, but I just pre-configure them just whenever I'm ready to move those cable, and then everything would be ready. Exactly the same name. They don't have to be the same name, but it makes sense, especially from if you come from a network background where sometimes you have 50 cables, 100 cables, you forget what they were, and you have multiple servers, multiple switches. You really need to know that everything on one server will match the second one without any problem, right? Okay, so before we go to the switch side, because what we're trying to do high availability. The one thing we're trying to do here is, if you notice over here when I have those bridges, for example, this one is not from a bond, it's from one interface, right? It's from one interface. So if we're talking about high availability, there is a problem over here because that interface is physically connected to that server, not to the other ones. So if that physical interface breaks, there is no option to move that connection to anything, because even if you have everything on the same data center, every host they still have their own specification. They have their own thing that they manage and monitor, and you cannot just assume it's going to match it with whatever this value is from another host. Although for me in my situation, I configure all of them on the same name, same naming everywhere. But this one you will notice that it's a little bit different. It's different because of the reason I want to test something. So I added here so that when we're trying to test high availability, we can see what is going on. Okay, so same name, same thing everywhere. And when I create my bond over here and I create for to do load balancing, I do LACP, and I don't know most of the what's the difference between a lot of those. Active backup, this one is clear. So if you have two legs, only one will be live at the same time, and if the other one fail, it will take over. But this one, I believe it's provide load balancing. So your link, if you have 210 gigs, you look at the switch, it's going to show you 20 gigs active at any time. I changed my MTU here because if we are talking about 10 gigs, MTU 1500 doesn't make sense. So I make it 9000 as a jumbo to support jumbo frame, and that's that for this one. Okay. So now we have the server specification, we have the network configuration and naming, and now for us to be sure that there's no problem going on in the network side, I move away from doing that classic type of configuration that all of us we know, and then I move to SDN instead. So for me, um, what for me the reason I prefer SDN is um a lot of configuration that I did from the host level over here, for example, especially this one. If you have 10 servers, you will have to go to every single server and then do the same thing. Make sure it's called VMBR1254. Make sure the bridge is the same. The bridge may not be the same because the bridge, it's not what make it happen. It's the sub interface number, like the 1254, that will be the VLAN. It has to be the same. So you have to repeat it everywhere. But again, for our own sanity, we don't want to keep changing the name so that we don't create confusion, especially in time of troubleshooting. So you will have to do that everywhere. But if we don't do that, and then we come to at the data center level, and then we go to SDN, and then we create everything here, I think this one is better because when you create something here under SDN, it will go to all servers in the data center at the same time. As long as over here on your bond, okay? So here's the trick. On the bond here, all what you have to do is on your switch, again, I'm ahead of myself because I wanted to talk separately about the switches when you're drawing your design so that um, you do it properly. But let's go into the switches. My switches, they have show interface brief. Okay. So I have two Aruba 6300. Again, this one doesn't make sense for the video that we are doing because we're trying to do the whole objective of this video is the ultimate open source enterprise for small business. And one of the things that we do not um, just assume you're going to have access to is to Aruba 6300. But what you should do that you cannot don't try to get out of it. Do not buy two switches that cannot do um, stacking. Okay, it has to be able to support stacking. The reason we're doing that is, again, the title is about high availability. We want for one switch to be able to fail, and then for the other one to take over, okay, without any problem. So um, if you don't have time money to buy, here's the way I see it. If you are the network administrator who's going to be designing and supporting the network and for a small business, and they give you the money, and the value of that money is to buy two new switches that cannot support stacking, I would prefer to use the same money to buy two used switches that can support um, stacking, because it will save you a lot of time. Okay, so if for here you're going to already have a hint that this is where the servers are connected. Okay, so we have three servers on port 123. Over here we have the same thing on port 123 with 10 gigs, and then if you look on the bottom, you have the lag 123 that have 20 gigs per. So at this point, one switch can, and so far we don't have any management running on this switch, because usually for whatever the reason a fiber can go wrong, and then the time to find spare part on a fiber, I will always prefer to have my servers still connected to another switch. In this case is this one, and again, it's not a requirement, because usually in a small business environment you will not have the luxury to have that many switches. But if you want to put everything on the same switch, yep, so be it. On the same stack, so be it. There's again, small business, not enough money. And now what we have to do is the villain that I'm going to use. For example, in my scenario, I know villain 100 is what I use for the management, or so-called management. Villain 200 will be for the servers. Villain 1254, I'm using it for streaming right now. And villain a 906, I am using it to connect to my ISP, um, um, a modem. But the rest for right now, a lot of them they're not in use, or they're not going to be part of the video. So today, what I'm trying to test is villain 100, 200, and 1254 when we're trying to test the failover. So since we have all the villains, what we want to do is make sure on our lag we add the same villain. Okay, so I know for you security people out there, you're going to say, what the fuck, why do you have all the villains allowed here? Again, I'm in a lab, okay, and that's why I do it. But to be fair, the way I should have configured it here is to say villain trunk allow, and then for now it's villain 10, 20, and then 1254. Okay, that should give me access to only the three VLANs. And yes, you should not add more VLANs that you need, because you do not, if you're trying to create a lean network, you should not allow VLAN to cross a chunk that it's not needed. Okay, so we have same VLAN and all the chunks. The bond between the servers, they are the same. Do not try. I would prefer to do 110 gig instead of doing 210 gigs, and then for one server to have four 1 gig bundle together, right? It's best to have the same thing everywhere, so that your servers, your experience in HA can be a little bit better. Okay. So right now we went through the server, we went through the switches, we have the same VLAN, same configuration, same speed, and then so right now we'll try to see if what will happen if we were to reboot one server. Okay, I do not hate myself that much. Let's try to see if we can fire up a few of the servers for testing. Let's start this one. And then that's fine. This one has a partner. Let's start this one as well. And why not? Let's start this one. Let's start this one. Okay, so um, we have the data center. We have the switches configured properly. We assume that we have the interface on the servers configured properly, but there is something that we haven't looked into. Okay, I am following up on 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 the document from Proxmox HA at the same time, and then we're going to type a few comments to see what is going on. So um the first thing they said, I can double check to see what is going on is if we are talking about HA, is it even configured, right? So yeah, there is nothing configured on HA. Okay? There is nothing configured on HA. It doesn't show anything. But I'm just going to try something here. If I go to the data center and grab this one and then go to HA, okay? So it says Chrome is okay because we have 3 servers. And I am trying to add one server to my HA to see if it's going to work. So there, again, I'm copy pasting. I do not memorize all those, and usually it's pretty simple. As long as you've done it once, it will be easier to remember what you're doing because it's HA dash manager, right? So I have this 100. This one is my home automation. Well, if there should be something with HA, that should be this one to start with. Okay. And I'm going to just add it to see if it's going to add it or if it's going to fail. Well, it didn't say anything. It didn't complain. And then if I go back here and then and to HA, it shows that this one is starting. Okay. Now I need to step back because there's one thing I didn't talk about, right? We're talking about HA. The whole thing about HA in Proxmox is believe that if you have a um, if you lose a server, in the worst case we always um, wish for is somebody is cleaning up the server room, pulling cable, and then we didn't tie the network the power cable, and then you just pull the power cable from the server. Yeah, you're going to tell me it's a server, it has dual power cable, but no, this one is based on a small business, okay? And it's, trust me, it can be applicable to any enterprise business with dual power supply. And depend of how bad of a day we're having, I can disable both cable at the same time, right? So if we want to do that, so what happened when it goes offline? What happened to the server? Guess what? My server will go offline in 1 second because that's all what it takes to remove the power, right? So it means the VM, they need to leave some places. Okay, there are 2 ways you can do that, or more than 2 ways. I know of 2 ways, but the first one I will never try it. If you have any of your VM that requires high uptime or very low um, outage from whichever the customer is, your company or whoever your client is. So the first way of doing it is to create a drive in every server. And when I say every server, sorry, I mean every node from your data center to have exactly the same name and the same configuration. Okay. So when you do that, um, the next step you will have to do after you create the local drive is to create a replication. Okay. So when you create the replication now, and if I try to do it myself over here and I say add replication, and then I do 100, blah, 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 and then comment test every 15 minutes, it's ask you the option. Well, depending on how fast your server is, um, you may do it once a week. Once a week, I will do that only if it is a web server. Because if you do it once a week in your server, you lose your server at the end of the day on Friday, you lose everything that happened on the day. But if you don't want to lose more than 30 minutes, you can do 30 minutes. But think about it. How much of data you're going to cause? Yes, it's not going to sync the whole server. It's going to only sync whatever is changed. But if you have a lot of changes happen on your environment, so bear in mind that is going to be a very big load. Okay, rate, I mean, you can rate limit the traffic. But if I do create, there is no replicatable volumes found. Okay, so I knew that was going to happen because my environment is not set up for that. I do not really care about the local drive, but what I have, um, and I said earlier that you have two options. No, you don't have two options. You have more than two options. I mean, a lot of options, but instead of two, I'm going to talk about a third one. We have safe. We use safe. People may use other things, um, but for me, I use safe. And for safe, you have two different safe, right? In here in Proxmox, I'm using the safe version of Proxmox. Okay, the safe version of Proxmox, and the safe version of Proxmox is, to me, it's a very light version of safe. It doesn't have um, it doesn't have everything that you really need to get safe to work properly. And if somebody is starting with safe and you're starting with safe in Proxmox, I will advise you to please do yourself a favor and watch more about safe because trust me, you will need it. For example, here it's a screenshot of our lab safe. Okay, you will see this one is having some errors right now, but at least you can see what is going on, right? You can see the capacity we have. We use 27 terabyte out of 67, and the error messages you're seeing here is because you notice we have 15 hosts, but we put some of them in maintenance because we are replacing some hosts with new ones or newish one. Uh, so if you look into Proxmox itself, you have so many, and into Ceph, you have so many things you can create, like the pools, the host. Those hosts, they are dedicated to Ceph, and you have the OSDs that will be hard drive. In OSD, to me, it's a physical hard drive. And so now it will tell you the path of each physical hard drive and which server they're coming from. And you have so much that you can create here. Okay. And you will not see those. You will not see those inside your safe that you load in Proxmox because basically you see from what we had over here to here, that's all what you have. It just says your health is okay, and it says that you have six hard drives, and the six hard drives they are from three servers. So since we spec our servers to be exactly the same, so each server they come with exactly the same amount of drive. So if I go to the server here, and then I go to um, disk, so this is my OSD here. This is my other OSD. So the server comes itself with a 1 gig internal NVMe. That is where I load my operating system, the Proxmox. And then those one, they were not formatted. This one come with the server, but I added this one. So every single server come with exactly the same thing. NVMe 2 terabytes, an NVMe 1 terabyte that come with the server, and a mini SATA drive, 2 terabyte that come with it. So based on this one, if you come to Ceph and then you look at, or to the server and then you look at, we're not going into this one right now, but at least over here, you'll notice I create one pool and it can have containers in this image. I don't really care about ISOs on this one. And NVMe, I create a different pool because each server has a mechanical drive and an NVMe drive. So the NVMe is faster, so we create a different pool so that the server that requires faster processing, we're going to add them on the NVMe. and the server that requires lower processing or speed or data reading write, we're going to move them over here. And then now you notice this one is a backup server. That's for another day. And then you notice also that we have an ISO file, and the ISO file, you see it has that dump and then the ISO image. That's what we use to load our ISOs, because once you load the ISO over here, you will come over that server. You see it has an ISO. Okay, you see it has an ISO. This ISO has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images downloaded. And then if you come over here, it will be exactly the same thing. So it does not belong to any host, any specific host, but it belongs to the whole data center. Okay, so now on my data center, if I go in any host and I look at the VM for HDD, it says that you have um, 2 terabyte, because when I create the pool, I create the pool with 2 terabytes. And of that 2 terabytes, that's what I'm using right now. Okay. And NVMe, believe it's exactly the same thing. And that's what I'm using right now. Okay. So that's what I'm using right now. So now, because I'm using the same and it shows on every other servers, I do not really need to do replication, because the data is saved and exactly is centralized or is shared um, amongst all the physical hosts that we have here. Okay. If I was to add one more server, I will add the more server with the same specification, the same hard drives, then move it to the data center and configure Ceph to it as well, so that I can have more redundancy, more space in the hard drive. Okay, enough say right now. So we assume that switches are configured properly. We assume that the servers, the link, they're configured properly, and then we're going to try to do some testing right now. So we are at 100 already. Let's do. I really don't need to put 114, because 114 is just a clone device. But a clone device, we will try to move it. Let's find out one thing we want to do quickly on this one. So this one is already on servers. Servers exist everywhere. So if you look over here, you will notice that there is a, so you have the internal, you have the ISP, and then if you go to every network over here, it will tell you what's in it. So on vendor, so we have the casting, the video, and if you go to internal, you have the server. So the server itself is the one that was using the VLAN 200. So nothing right now should be connected to, like this one is connected to um, VMBR0. So this one is not part of the SDN. So the first thing that we want to do is this one has a different kind of CLI that is not, to me, that is not too user friendly. So let's find that server. Doesn't have anything on it. It's a network management. And then we're going to try to change it to another. Let's move it here first so that we can see. Come on. We don't need it to be that big. Let's move it over here. And then what was downloading? So my apologies if I do not even remember my username. So, but after 50 try, we should find out. I think we found it. Nope. Let's try one more time. Let's do, I don't know. That's embarrassing. Should have write it on a piece of paper or add it to the banner. It's taking longer. It's maybe the right one this time. Okay. Yep. I did use. it is the right one. Okay. Well, that is new. My screen doesn't want to stay where it's supposed to be. Okay. So I'm going to start a quick ping to 8.8.8.8. Hopefully it's working. Please be a nice boy. Stay right here. Don't what? Well, at least one thing has to be fucking broken. So, all right. Uh, anyway, so we'll have to okay, we'll have to switch from here to there. So if we edit this one, if we just move it to, for example, server, and then we click on OK, I wonder how long it's going to, because it has to lose connectivity at some point, right? Because it was on a different VLAN, and then now you move it to server, and I believe if we stop and do ifconfig IP ADD, it is on VLAN 200. Well, I'm not complaining because it's happened too fast, but let's try one more time. What if we do f log messages syslog syslog, and then let's see if it shows when it's changing. Okay. So that was the last time when it gets an IP address, and I'm going to just go over here and then move it back to network management. That is from a different VLAN, and then click OK. So you see it takes, I mean, the 1 second to do it, then it get another IP address. So if we're moving our servers from one VLAN to another one, it only takes a matter of few seconds to move around. So we know the VLANs that configured. And the VLAN we are using right now, those are not the VLANs that are attached to the host. They are the one attached to the SDN instead. Now, one quick thing about the SDN, and I hope at some point they may change it. If they change it, it will be fantastic. You see, whenever you come here, it always say apply, bolded. So sometimes if you don't even know if you made a change or not, it just show you that, oh, you have an apply option. Yeah, okay. I keep applying if I do not remember if I did something. But the one thing that I wanted you to think about here is over here. You see, when you're doing that, it has those question mark over it, not question mark, escalation over them. Sometime as well, they have red. If something failed, for example, if you chose the wrong interface during the configuration and something is wrong, they're not going to be in a good state. They will give you a warning, and at least you know that something is wrong with your servers or with the SDN itself in the configuration. Really, if everything was working on your server, it has nothing to do with the server itself. It's more about the SDN. Okay. So now let's find out those servers. For example, this is my Windows domain controller, and it's on VMBR 0. Let's close this one. We already proved what we were trying to prove, and this one, hopefully it's behaving properly. Don't go big. Yeah, that's good enough. That's good enough. Okay. And really, and what I wanted to do was to use this one and then send the controller delete, and then okay. Do cmd do ban -d 8.8.8.8. Okay, so let's try this baby here. It's pinging. Let's see if we can make this one a little bit smaller. again, I'm doing everything. What is the word? I'm just winging it. Like based on what I do every day when I'm working on the lab. So I'm going over them with you. And hopefully, if you have a question and if I make mistake, trust me, until I rewrite the video, reread it, I will not, um, sorry, until I watch the video, I will not be able to tell you what's going on. Okay. Although this one is a server, but it's running on my network management. So I'm removing it from what it is right now and drop it to the network management. And then the only thing you notice that happened here when I did it, it's moved from 38 milliseconds to 308, and then life continues, right? So now what I'm going to do for this one as well is to add it to my HA. So if you do not add your server to HA, it's not going to do anything when you disconnect the power from your computer, from your server. Okay, it will just die with it. If you shut down, if you are you shutting down the host that have that has the server, if you're shutting it down gracefully, it will shut down those VM first. Okay, then it will shut itself down, but it's not going to move them anywhere, right? So packet fence, I will need it to be an HA. For right now, why not? It's 101 and 106, 105. I need 105 as well because 105 is, I already had a video on it, and this one was about data center manager. Um, and then 104. So I put 104, I put 105. What else do I need? Nope. Those, yeah, later on, but something is weird with a server that I imported, and I really don't want to mess with it right now because it has the same DHCP range that I'm using. Basically, it's a firewall. It has the same DHCP range. If I turn it on, it may take the network offline. So let's enable 7100. All right, guys. So now you may say that I really have something against me. Let's do 300 because we're going to shut down that server because it's the busiest server. That's the one we're going to shut it down. I don't want to shut it down. I'm just going to go to the switch and then freaking disable the port or physically remove the port. But before we do that, there's one more thing that we have to review in all the VMs that we enable HA for. The hard drives. Boom. Is it local? Well, this one for now, I'm going to remove it. Or while we're doing that, why don't we just do that? Let's just move the storage. Okay. Let's move the storage to the NVMe and then delete the source and move. It's gonna take a while, but we have other stuff to do. It means I cannot reboot that server now. I'm going to reboot another one. So in order for me to reboot another one to make sense with what we are doing, let's find another server. So this server only has this one and that one. 100 is already on HA. 114, I really don't care about it, but it's already here. Okay. And what about this one? Where are you? Yep, it is on the shared drive as well. So let's move a few more servers over here so that it can make sense. And this one, where are you? It's a local drive. Well, let's move it. Or let's just move the whole server and then the drive will move at the same time. So we're going to migrate it to VD. Okay. And then for the storage, I'm going to say, yeah, please move it to my NVMe at the same time. Okay. Because it's a migration. Maybe I already enabled this one. Fine. Let it do what it's doing. I need another one, Docker. It's already there. Let's move. Let's migrate this one to VD. Okay. Think about it, see how long it takes to do the migration. And all what it's going to do most of the time is do the drives, the memory migration and nothing else, because guess what? You already have your data on the same location. And that's what it's going to do right now. And if your server was to go offline, the only thing that's not going to be migrated right now will be the memory dump. So whatever was in the VM memory will not be migrated to the new host. Okay, that's about it. So all those processes are running on the back. Okay, so we have the status here. Let's find out how far we are. That was 104. Um, yeah, so this one is grab the hard drive from local to the server, from local to the shared storage. What about this one here? It's already in the shared one. This one is there as well. So either we migrate the whole thing. If it's going to take longer, I'm going to stop the video. You know what? I'm not going to stop the video. So we'll continue. We'll continue definitely. So my phone is losing charge for the video, so I need to find a way to charge it. Please hold. I'll be right with you. Here we go. All right. I think we should be good. We should be good right now. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this one will take. Yeah, take your time. So now let's find a server that is not doing anything right now that we can use. Okay. While we're doing that, what else can we talk about quickly? Um. So we already talk about the hardware specification. Um, what we didn't talk about too much was when I was doing the configuration here, and I went to my network and I have the bond. I have bond, and then I have um, a bridge. So how did I come about doing it the way I did it? The networking part from here, and that is the good thing about Proxmox. The, m- any knowledge you have from Linux, you can just transfer it directly to Proxmox, and then forget about the UI, because almost everything you do on the UI here, if you go to /etc, that you just look at /etc network and then interface, that exactly the same thing you have here. Okay, the same way you are going to configure it from a Linux point of view, that exactly the same way it is configured here. So what I used to do in Linux is just do a bond between multiple interfaces. Okay, and in our case here, I'm doing it with two. So when you have a bond right now, and then you need to add a bridge to it, because let's say you have a bond of two interfaces. The best way to communicate with it is to create a bridge, and then tell that bridge that you're going to use the bond, and this one here matches this one. It's just for easy read, but they don't have too much. But again, when they match, it's easier for you to go there and find out what was configured here. Okay, bond 0 will be the logical bond that we create with the two interfaces, and this one will be our VLAN. The other way you can do it is remove that interface, but you cannot redo it again. If you remove the VLAN ID and then you make it VLAN anywhere, you cannot reuse this one, because when you use this one, it tells it's the same way over here. It tells for example, bond 0. If you come here on VMBR 10 and then you edit it, When you do not put the VLAN ID, it makes this one a switch chunk, almost like a native Cisco or a native HP or anything else. It just say just be aware that I'm going to use VLAN somewhere. Okay, I'm going to use a VLAN somewhere to tell that bridge what to do. So if, for example, I have to create something connected to bond 0 and I didn't put it here, if I'm doing it directly at the VM, I have to remember on the VM itself, for example, in the case here, and then if I go to the network side of thing, and then I use the bond, I will have to use the bridge that I created, right? In this case, that is VMBR0. If I use VMBR0, and once I do that, I have to tag the VLAN here, okay? I have to tag the VLAN here. I really don't like doing this way because um, I would have to not only remember everything from the host level, from the switch to the host, and then I have to remember it at every VM. That is, again, that is for me. Everybody can choose their own way of doing it, but I prefer to not add any VLAN to the VM, to the even to the host. I don't want to add any VLAN to the VM itself. I prefer to let SDN deal with that. Okay. So I don't the only reason I cannot flip the switch right now is because we are doing those migration, and then I think they're taking longer than expected. Yeah, this one will definitely take longer, but I may try. Okay, I will leave the migration running. Then when everything is migrated to um when everything is migrated to from local drive, and I'm going to stop that video and go to every single VM here and then find out the one that have local drives, and I will migrate them. I apologize, I should have done that before, but in order to show you exactly what I'm doing and then to show you that yeah, it will work, and I'm not editing any video, it's something live. If it doesn't work, you will know for sure it doesn't work. But let me move all the data from their current state. And there's another way if you guys want to hang out. If you want to see the live failover in action, it may take a while, but over here, and there's another thing you can do is go to your host. You don't really need to do the migration of the server. Okay, you don't have to do the migration of the server in order to move that drive. You can come over here and then move all the drives. Okay, so this drive, so on or VM1, for example, let's start with 1001. So if I go to 1001, that's a Grafana, and then all what I can do here, it says drive action, move the storage, and then I'm going to move it over here, and then after that it can delete it. Okay, and it only has one drive. Or the other thing, if you want to do it that way as well, and there is no one way to do it, it's just based on preference. If it is local, packet fence is local, yeah, I'm going to do the same thing. I have space, move drives, whichever packet fence. Am I doing something? Oh, I'm going, it's already being moved. So I'm not doing anything to this one. This one is already there. This one is on a local. Which ID is this one? This one is 103. I don't have anything on 103 yet. Okay, so instead of migrating the whole thing, and there's another thing. When I'm done, I remove those. They're not needed, really. And until you shut down the server and turn it back, it's not going to go away. So now I'm just going to move this one from local to NVMe. Oh, and I did not click on deleting something. I have to go back. And the thing about that, because I didn't do it, I may forget, and later on, I just have to double check multiple times to make sure, hey, um, that server was moved already, and then I can delete it. So same thing here, and going to move storage, whichever this one is. This one doesn't need fast storage. Going to move it and then delete. Okay, guys, I will let this one complete it. Once everything completed, I will start another video, and then I will pull the plug to show you guys if it works or not. All right, thank you.